All right, let's get our Facebook folks in here and we can start this Monday morning show bright and early. We got the wheel spinning. Oh, we got an error on that one. Let's try it again. All right, spinning wheel on both. We'll see. Mile High Huddle. There we go. All right, well, took a couple shots there, but we got it going here. It's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell and joined by, once again, good to see you, Scott Kennedy, back from Mobile, Alabama. Scott, trust me, you had a good time. I'm always excited to see the clips that you got there. Who have you been working on? Who's out right now?
Yeah, it's nice to be back where I've got 750 as my upload speed instead of 0.7, where I can upload something, blink, and be like, okay, that's done, instead of, okay, upload it and go to bed. I'll post it in the morning. So that's one of the troubles with that trip. So it's good to be home, back to my stuff. What am I working on right now? The next things I will do, and I see a question here about Jack Besh. That'll be one of the first. The next two of the next things I'm going to do are Tez Johnson and Jack Besh. So I'll do some wide receivers next, because after doing quarterbacks, their wide receivers are kind of already done, except for the blocking, and nobody cares about that anyway, except Nick Kendell. And then I'll finish the one-on-ones from the American team, which is basically the SEC.
Yeah, so that'll be great. You mentioned two of the guys that probably the more interesting one, Tez Johnson, Jack Besh as well. I want to give a shout out to Jalen Royals, maybe somebody who also might get a little bit of intrigue there from Utah State. But yeah, not overall the most dynamic group of wide receivers down there in Mobile this year. So it's kind of just a downer year for wide receiver in the draft anyway. There's still talent. Somebody's going to hit. Like, there's going to be some good players that come from it still, but just the overall volume doesn't feel great as far as the top 100 talent this year. Both Iowa State guys as well had good weeks. So I'm excited to see them.
Yeah, we always talk about like, oh, there's no tight ends, but then I get down there and I'm like, there's some tight ends I like down there. And it actually,
tight end here.
It's a format that is good for tight ends. You know, with going against linebackers 1v1 with no traffic, not getting off any jams or anything like that. That it's time for them to shine. But you know, watching the Clemson tight end, it was Jake Brenningstone.
I think
I'm wrong, Burgundy.
I think it's Stool.
Let me double check here. Tight end, wrong team, Stool. American team, tight end. Yeah, it's Jake Brenningstone. It's like 6'5", 235. And knows how to use his body and catch everything. I'm like, there's your big slot. There's your little Jordan Humphrey replacement right there. You know, if he can be had on day 3, by God, take him.
Yeah. I want to see how he tests still, because, you know, the big athlete, give me those guys. We talked about on the Falcons show earlier, the NFL's bad at evaluating tight ends for the most part. So for me, I think Denver, they're in a position to take 2 tight ends. They got 3 6-round picks. Give me the best athlete who still fits, you know, culture, character-wise, with one of those 6-round pick at tight end, and you have a chance to hit. I mean, there's that UCLA guy that's huge. That's interesting down there. Texas Tech has a 6'3", 260-pound tight end that was at the Shrine Bowl. He looks like he's going to be a heck of an athlete. So I wouldn't be opposed at all at doubling up at tight end this season for the Broncos. And yeah, it was a really good tight end crop down there at the Shrine Bowl. I'm eager to see, I think, the top 3 consensus guys coming out top 4 coming out of the Senior Bowl. Number 1's probably Arroyo from Miami, who's kind of that blurs that line between tight end and wide receiver.
He had a wicked drop, like just an awful drop that it was such a good throw. I'm going to put it in the quarterback's highlight. In fact, it is in the quarterback's highlight. So I don't remember who threw it. It may have been Dylan Gabriel. But then everything else was fine. Then he had some really good catches. And then he was probably, him and Brenningstone were like the 2 best receiving tight ends there.
He came out of the Senior Bowl where Daniel Jeremiah is talking about him potentially being a 1st-round pick. If you want to hear about any hype on that front. Now, he did have an injury history, but he's a former 4-star recruit, somebody with a lot of talent, and he flashed a lot. Him and Xavier Restrepo, who didn't have a very loud Senior Bowl, but he's just a tough player. I don't mind him at all from Miami.
No, I watched him play at Miami some. Like, I don't watch nearly the volume of college football that you do. I watch Auburn and I watch Florida. Yeah. And then every once in a while I'll watch a big game. But they played Florida and he was good. He was really good.
He's a big play waiting to happen. Yep. Restrepo is just dirty work guy and good. It's 200 pounds too for a slot. I like, again, I like bigger players. I'm very much embracing the bully mentality with where today's NFL is. I'm done with small players. But the other three tight ends I wanted to give a shout out to: Mason Taylor, Jason Taylor's son from LSU. He's not like a superstar at anything, but he's big. He blocks in line well. He's smooth. He knows when just like he looks like a professional out there. And he's only 21 years old also, so he's still developing. He's going to be – one thing I love about him is that he's going to project as a Y. So 11 personnel, 12 personnel, you're not going to have to worry about, what packages can we get him in there with? He's going to play. So he's one who really stands out. You also have
real quick, Nick, while you're thinking of this, and let's get to David Kilgore too. Back to Brenning's stool. One of the interesting things about him is, as big as he is, he's 6'5" and change, right? Mm-hmm. He had 8 7/8 hands. You watch this guy that catches everything, uses his body well, plays it like a smooth power forward. My hands are bigger than his. He's 6'5" and change. I'm like, well, he knows how to use those hands. It's not the size of the hands, it's how you use them, right? But that was easily the smallest set of hands of the tight ends, and that's Kenny Pickett territory.
Yeah. You worry about fumbles, not just with that, but the fumbles getting punched out. We got David Kilgore says, what do you think of Marquise Siegel?
Siegel, I would imagine, from K-State. And David, I feel bad that you used a super chat on this, so let's take one on the house. I don't know who that is. And apologies. Like, I don't profess to be a college football expert. How do you not know who he is? He was all conference, because I didn't watch K-State. I watched the Senior Bowl when I got back there, and I don't think he was there. I just did a Control F on the roster, and I don't think he was at the Senior Bowl, David. So apologies, but I don't know much about him.
It's also spelled differently too.
Okay.
Marquise.
But I did a search on Marquise.
Yeah, Marquise Sigel, 6 foot, 200 pounds, from Nebraska originally, Kansas State guy. I mean, we're still working our way through. I'm still working my way through top 100, top 120 kind of guys.
What positions he play?
He's a safety. So, and safeties are hard. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like, Denver is going to have a chance to take a safety early in the draft. And my understanding of safety is it's really hard to evaluate. And I'm going to more trust some of the big guys out there in their evaluation. Because again, safety, you'll have like 2 or 3 plays a game where it's like actually highlighting on them. It's kind of like trying to evaluate a right fielder in baseball. Sometimes it's like, are they actually getting the ball? But no, that's
and Nick, even then with it's not quite as bad as linebacker, but I don't know how many times I've even put up highlights of safeties over the course of 3 days, because I don't have enough plays for them in coverage. They're not allowed to tackle, so how you'll see, it's like, I'll use a highlight where they close and run by a guy where they would have tried to light him up. But, that's how bad it gets trying to evaluate the safeties in this. So apologies, David. But I don't know too much about him yet. We'll keep an eye on pro days and stuff, and we'll report back on that for sure.
Yeah, as far as safeties go, I mean, it's kind of like linebackers. Like, if you see movement skills in a one-on-one, you have something there, but that's still kind of a drop in the bucket of the overall skill set. I mean, so much is processing and physicality from those positions, and Senior Bowl is not really the setting for that. But thank you so much for the super chat, David. You guys coming in and supporting us with all that stuff. We really do appreciate that. Keeping the lights on. Scott says keeping his forehead shiny. String guys in here. Good to see you. Good morning, Dave Glassman in the house. We got Micah coming in from the UK saying, give me Gray Zabel. The other guy coming out, we talked about Arroyo already, coming out, Elijah Arroyo, tight end from Miami. The other guy, it seems like going from day 2 to potentially first round, is Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. Played left tackle at North Dakota State, but measured in shorter arms for the position. He plays some guard. He plays some center. Had a few whiffs in the actual Senior Bowl game. But as far as the consensus coming out, a lot of people are saying the best day-to-day winner out of the entire Senior Bowl was Zabel. Now, he did have the fortune of playing on the national side that actually was able to get in reps, where the American side spent like half of every single practice stretching and doing special team stuff. I know there's a lot of complaints about that American staff.
I just went through the 1v1s.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite done, but I've got 60 1v1 reps. I am done. I've got 60 1v1 reps across 3 days for the American team. I've got, let me see. Let me scroll down here. I've got 130 1v1 reps for the national team.
Whoever was one on the American side needs to have a pull off and talking to. I know they're trying to highlight younger coaches and elevate them in things, but it's still a tool to evaluate players. And the
twice as many 1v1 reps for the national team as the and Nick, I don't say this with hyperbole, and I'm sure there's guys I'm forgetting. You know, we like Quinn Miners, like Creed Humphrey, some guys that we've seen, but it seems like, you know, the guys that we, you know, I fall in love with have been tackles. You know, Spencer Brown, Abraham Lucas. There was a guy last year that ended up going really high. He ended up going pretty high that we really liked at tackle. Gray Zabel, off the top of my head, had the best interior line performance during the week in the 5 years that I've been going there.
Wow, that's awesome. Again, he's going to be hard to evaluate for me personally because his reps at North Dakota State are tackle, and that's not there's some projection there, some imagination going from guard to center. So
that just tells you that that was by far their best lineman. It's like every interior lineman has left every interior lineman that makes it up the steps of from one level to the next has left tackle in his background. You know, probably in high school. They were a left tackle in high school. Then most of them will move interior if they're interior linemen move in college. But when you go to North Dakota State, Nick, you know, you're not going against Miles Frazier at 6'7", 330 pounds and can pogo stick his way at LSU. You're at North Dakota State, and you are by far the best lineman. And if you were 6'7", 330 pounds, you wouldn't be at North Dakota State. So we use our best lineman at left tackle. But, you know, the measurements and size and stuff. So that just means to me that he was their best lineman. You know, we talk about moving left to right. You know, it's changed a little bit, but most right tackles were left tackles in college is how it used to be for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But North Dakota State, he stood out at the Senior Bowl. And coming from North Dakota State to the Senior Bowl, especially with how guys are being elevated and plucked these days, I'm glad that the Senior Bowl is still highlighting some of these smaller school guys and finding these underdogs. And speaking of underdogs, today's show is brought to you by Underdog, of course, as well. We appreciate them. Take the wheel, Scott.
Yeah, the best app for your big game party is actually on your phone. It's called Underdog. Underdog is the best place to cash in on all your takes during the big game. Which players are going off and which ones are ice cold? Make your entries in just a few taps.
With their pick'em game, you could win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on players' stats, such as yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and more. They've got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. Create entries with all football picks or mix and match across your other favorite sports. Underdog is the only pick'em platform that puts the power to cash out in your hands. Now you can either keep riding with your entry or tap the Win Now button to cash out whenever you want.
Download the Underdog app today and use our code MHuddle to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Again, download the Underdog app today and use our code MHuddle to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus for Colorado. In some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. New York, call a 24/7-HOPE line at 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Appreciate Underdog coming in again.
Nailed that. You nailed that. You sound like a radio read where they mock it up to two times the read. Nailed it.
I mean, I listen to a lot of my podcasts on 2 times speed, so I'm already here. When I listen to them, like ones that I listen to normally on 1 speed, I'm like, oh my gosh, dragging your butts, guys. What's going on?
That's what I listen to books at normal speed. My wife does it at 1.5, and she's like, how can you stand this? I'm like, I listen to it specifically to go slow.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I want to slow down. My brain's already going a zillion miles an hour with all these voices. Slow down.
Well, this is my second thing of coffee, so that's probably why I was able to hit that like that. Jason else coming in and says, Jack Betch in the third bound would be great value, talking about the story of the Senior Bowl. Jack's brother Tiger was slain in the New Year's Day New Orleans terrorist attack, and he just had a really tough time, obviously, from that. But I love him coming out of TCU. A lot of people coming in to this cycle on Broncos Twitter that are more in the draft community. We're talking up the TCU's other wide receiver, Savion Williams, because he's like 6'2" and 220 pounds and used as a running back, an H-back, a tight end, a wide receiver, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, I see a guy. He's very fun athletic.
Besh? The dude's built like a linebacker.
I love, Savion Williams is more of the Cordell Patterson type, and people fall in love with the
Besh is like 6'1", 215 and jacked.
Yes. He's built tough. He's one of my favorite 3 blocking wide receivers in this class as well. Really good contested catch. I don't think he's going to test exceptionally. But again, if you're looking for, everybody wants, I feel like they fall in love with tight ends that are pass catchers that like can't block and function in line a lot. And I'm here thinking like Sean McVay, like, why would I use a tight end for that role when I have a wide receiver who can block just as well and is twice the wide receiver? That's where I come in with somebody like Besh. Alec A.O. Manor, another one from Stanford, like that. Ted McMillan can kind of, it's the Drake London archetype, right, Scott? Like Drake London blocks as well from the slot as like half your pass catching tight ends out there. And he's so
a much better blocker than Kyle Pitts. That one's easy.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I 11 personnel that can function like 12 personnel is very valuable in today's game. And I think Besh is somebody who can operate like that. When I watched him, I thought he was a little taller. I think at TCU he's listed 6'3", not 6'1" that he measured in verified from the Senior Bowl. But I watched him and I saw a lot of Eric Decker from him as well. Not overly incredible as an athlete, but like super nuanced as a route runner, very good at the catch point, physical player, and has some inside-outside ability as well. So I'm a big fan of Besh. I was hoping to have him as an option round 3 for the Broncos. I think he's probably going to end up going in the top 50 when it's all said and done, maybe top 60, just because, again, it's not a very good wide receiver crop in general this season. So everybody's going to get elevated. It's also even worse in free agency, Scott. So I think I could see wide receivers being really elevated this cycle. But I like Besh, and hell of a week down there in the Senior Bowl.
All right, looking at his body type, there was somebody that just came to mind for me. I hadn't really thought about it. Like, I don't always do comps very well. And I was like, when I'm thinking of his body, the wide receiver that springs to mind right away,
the Cooper Kupp?
Anquan Bolden.
Oh, Bolden. Okay. All right.
It was Anquan Bolden. So I was like, okay. And Anquan Bolden was a wide receiver, was a quarterback in high school. And he fell because he was a 4.7 guy. He ran 4.72 at the NFL Combine. But I just looked it up. But is he an athlete? He had a 4.33 shuttle with a 7.3 L cone. He's a pretty good athlete. Mm-hmm. He was 6'1", 216 pounds at the NFL Combine.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and then he just knew just had an unbelievable feel for the game and caught everything that was near him. And Anquan Bolden played a long time in the NFL. Let's see here. What did he finish with? I've got to scroll back up because I've scrolled all the way down to the combines. He finished with almost 14,000 yards receiving.
Wow. I mean, he was a heck of a player. Arizona, good swan song seasons out there with Baltimore as well. Heck of a guy. Really appreciate Bolden. It'd be something if he was Bolden, man. And
with that 40, Bolden went second round, 54th overall. Because it was like, you've got hella production. We talk about the guys that go in the first, it's on a scale. They've got the production and the measurements. Those are the first round picks usually. And then as they start sliding down, one of those two things is worse. You got hella production, but you don't measure very well, or you measure very well, but you didn't produce.
Yeah.
This guy was straight football player. And
a comp that I heard for him thrown out by Rick Spielman, from longtime general manager of Vikings. He threw out the Chris Chambers comp. So a big physical guy from, I think, Wisconsin. Didn't throw the ball very much, but ends up being a heck of a player in the NFL as well. Michael coming in. Good to see you. He says, good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Also see you. It was David Youngkin's birthday today. Happy birthday, David. Great to see you. String guys in the house. Adam Strange as well. Kenneth Booker. Great to see you. Want to say hello to everybody. Quentin Caldwell. Christopher comes in. Castro from Iowa looked good during the Senior Bowl. Yeah, Sebastian Castro. He's kind of is he going to play safety? Is he going to play slot? I mean, Iowa uses this position called star. It's kind of crazy. Cooper DeJean, I think that was his best position, but he was so good athletically that they put him on the perimeter. But we see him, and now he's playing that safety, cornerback, slot hybrid. Castro's not as big or as athletic, but he's got a lot of instincts and a very good tackler. So he's somebody who came out of the Senior Bowl. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up going in the top 100. I think probably you're talking pick 80 to pick 140 is his range before testing. But good player out there at Iowa. Just solid. They look night and day difference when he's not out there.
He had some flash plays. I don't remember him I haven't looked up names. I haven't memorized names versus numbers, but I remember seeing 26 Iowa. Oh, that was a pretty good play. I will be doing that over the course of the next week as I go through my Senior Bowl stuff and posting those guys. David, this one's easy. I feel better about this one. He says, David Kilgore comes in with another super chat. He says, you guys think that Denver has any shot or will move up in the draft to select Travis Hunter? That one's easy. No. Now, I could lawyer this thing for you, David, and say, well, you never know, things happen, blah blah blah. No, I don't think there's any way they will move up into the top 3 or 4, top two to get Travis Hunter. It would be way, way, way too expensive to try and get him. And frankly, I don't think it's worth it. I say that and he ends up being, cross between Deion Sanders and Larry Fitzgerald. But right now, I just think it would be way too expensive. And do I think the guys that are up there in the top 2 would move down this year, Nick? Yeah, I think they'd move down for the right price. They weren't ever going to do that last year with 3 quarterbacks, with 3 teams that needed quarterbacks. But yes, I think the teams in the top 2 or 3 would, in the top 5 period, I think they'd be willing to move down this year, Nick.
Yeah, I do as well. We'll see what happens. It seems like coming out of Mobile, Scott, if we start doing, full first-round mocks, we can maybe change the pick from pencil to pen of Cam Ward at 1 overall. It seems like that's the Tennessee's guy, and that's who they're going to go with. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Browns, the Giants, the Patriots as well. As far as moving up, guys I have my eyes on for Denver, potentially moving up the board. If Tet McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona, falls to we'll just use the Falcons, Scott, the team that seems pretty desperate to move down. If he falls to 15, I'm probably on the phone. I think if Tyler Warren's at 15, I'm on the phone. If Ashton Genty's at 15, I'm probably – that one's a little bit harder because the depth of what running back is so good, but I think Genty's great. I also think Genty might fall to 20, but I think between the Broncos pick at 20 and when they pick again at 51, you're going to see 3 or 4 running backs fly off the board. So I'd be a little bit hazardous of totally kicking the can from that position. 1 in the hand's better than 2 in the bush, right? But yeah, thank you for the super chat, David. Probably not happening.
Sounds like the dirtiest phrase I've ever heard, by the way.
Yeah.
Tyler Warren was mocked by Eric Edholm at number 5 this year, and then Genty was at 6 for those guys. What did I call him earlier? I must not have called him Ashton because I heard you say Ashton. Did I call him?
You called him something else.
Probably called him Tyler Genty. Ashton Genty, Boise State running back, obviously. He's mocked number 6 by Eric Edholm, NFL.com, with a new mock today. And then ESPN Plus, I actually emailed it to you, Nick. Emailed you that link. ESPN Plus has a 2-rounder going today.
Heck yeah. Love that. We'll see whoever that is for Denver. Maybe write that up later. But yeah, no, those are the guys right now, the offensive weapons. I don't think I'm not ready to stake my claim on wide receiver 2 in this class yet. Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden. We'll see. But yeah, I'm right here sitting here at Denver. It's like I run mock draft simulators, Scott, and we'll probably, if we have time, we'll run another one today here in a bit. But we need to it's really hard. I feel like I look at pick 20 and when I watch it, it's like, oh yeah, I love this guy at pick 20. Don't love the value. A lot of these guys, it's like, yeah, I like him at 20. I like him just as much at 20 as I like him at 40. And there's a list of 20
What's
guys.
What's nice about picking at 20, Nick, is you don't really have to worry about positional value.
Yeah, I mean, it's still weighted in the board,
I know, but if you were to get, you need a linebacker. If you get the best linebacker in the draft at 20, you're freaking ecstatic. Yep. This is the guy. I could use a safety. I could use a safety next to Brandon Jones. If I get a safety.
Gray Zabel at 20, another option. We're talking about twice 22 rich. If you love him and you think offers you a 5-year, or not a 5-year, a 15-year option at center, they're going forward. It's an option. It's on the table. I'm always going to be a little bit leaning towards positional value because your range of outcomes is more palatable. If you take a wide receiver at pick 20 and he ends up beating the 40th best wide receiver in football, that's fine. You're actually going to get a surplus value on that contract. But if you take a tight end and he's only the 20th best tight end and you're paying what the slotted amount, no matter what, that's not a very good investment compared to the wide receiver. So the range of outcomes is
you're not getting the benefit of the rookie contract. The higher you go, you're not getting the benefit of the rookie. You take a tight end in the top 10 or a running back in the top 10. Who would do that anyway? You're not getting the benefit of the rookie contract that you would from other positions. But at 20, it doesn't really matter as much. The rookie contract is going to be cheap, period.
Yep. And talking about the center position, I mean, Luke Wattenberg, you have him 1 year of cost control left. He's center guard flex. Center, though, is one of those sneaky needs for this team. You have Ben Powers here again this year, but he's out after 2025 season as well. So again, one of those dark horse spots for the Broncos. Obviously, their biggest immediate need on return on investment is offensive weapon, specifically running back. But again, you're not going into the draft thinking, how can we improve this team with these picks this season? It's more about where you're going to get 2 or 3 years from now from those positions. You can go back for the Broncos' last 3 drafts. I mean, Nick Benito, it took 2 seasons. Dulcich didn't hit. Riley Moss took 2 seasons. I mean, Marvin Mims, some special teams value, but took 2 seasons. These are the kind of guys that, once you get past pick 20, and even in this season, I think pick 20 is a lot like pick 30, 40 in a lot of other years. It's not about the 2025 impact. It's about what you can get over the duration of that contract. So you got to think big picture. And I see you pulled something up here, Scott, before we get into the Broncos' biggest needs. I think it's going to be pretty easy to run through these.
Yeah, and this is one of them. And 78 Leadhead, good to see you. Glad you can make it live for us. And this is all the same thing here. He says, good morning, gentlemen. What mid-round running back do you gentlemen have your eyes on? Right now, he's a day 3 guy. And this is, again, I'll tell you what I know because I don't know everybody else out there, but Montrell Johnson's a pretty good player out of Florida. But Jarquez Hunter is the Auburn Tigers' number 4 all-time leading rusher. And he's got pretty low tread on him because he only carried the ball about 15 times a game this year. And this is my clip for Nick specifically, because this is him blocking a pretty good linebacker out of Notre Dame. Nick's like, ooh, he blocks. Yes, he blocks. He does everything. He'll play special teams for you. He'll block punts. That I love Jarquez Hunter. Again, being 4th all time, he's behind Bo Jackson, Cadillac Williams, James Brooks, Jarquez Hunter, Joe Cribbs, Ben Tate, Stephen Davis, Brent Fullwood, Ronnie Brown. Those are the guys. This is pretty good history of running backs at Auburn University. This guy's number 4 all time. 5, what did he end up measuring? Probably 5'10", 215. I mean, he's all lower, and he's got this amazing body lean. He always leans like he's about to fall down. So the only thing you see when he comes through the line is the crown of his helmet and his shoulder pads. He measured 5'9" and 1/8, 212 pounds, and he's got bigger hands than Brenning Stool, which, like I said, is kind of strange. I love Jarquez Hunter. So you get Jarquez Hunter day 3, I'm excited for you.
Yeah, he's one that I have my eye on. I think everybody knows this guy. I think he's going to be more of a 3, 4th round player, and that's Cam Scatterbu from Arizona State. He's one that I'm going to copy Peyton adage here, but he says you got to know when the ride's over. That's my biggest thing with Cam Scatterbu is that, he's looking to make so many broken tackles and big plays that ball security is an issue.
Jarquez has 3 lost fumbles in 4 years.
Yeah, Hunter's very good. He's a no-nonsense guy, kind of glass eater. I like him round 5, round 6 range. And Mel Kiper said he has 33 draftable grades on running backs this year. So depth is not going to be – it's unbelievable. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
That's an entire round, 33 picks.
It is crazy. Some later guys I like as well. DJ Giddens from Kansas State. He's kind of a mid-round guy who's got my eye on. Kyle Monangai from Rutgers runs really hard. Marcus Yarns from Delaware had a pretty good time down the Senior Bowl. A lot of positive momentum coming out from him. Really like Damian Martinez from Miami. He runs.
I like the other ATN too out of Georgia.
Yep. Yeah. Martinez, I had questions about his pass blocking at Miami. Didn't always show great there. By the Senior Bowl, he actually looked pretty good. And the frame's there. It's just like the technique and the will. And he showed that in the Senior Bowl. So he stands out. And one of my favorite guys for the Broncos mid-rounds, I keep trying to mock him to the Broncos in the 4th round. I don't know if he'll be there, but I really like LaQuint Allen. I see him mocked down here, Jason Bonney from Syracuse. I mean, a lot of rushing yards, a lot of receiving yards. He's a heck of a player actually has a frame. He's not like this glorified, wide receiver type. He's 180, 5'9". It's like, oh man, no, thank you. I think he's like 6 foot, 200, 205. So those are the mid-round guys that off the top of my head really stand out. I think he'll go to probably top 1. He'll go somewhere from 80 to 150.
And Quentin coming in with support. Not much to say, just throwing in a super chat. So thank you for the support and helping to keep the lights on, keep the heat on, depending on where you are. Keep us in sunscreen down here in the South. It's sunny and going to be in the 70s today. About burn my forehead today, this weekend out at baseball. So you get some toasty guys down at the Senior Bowl when the sun comes out, and you get some of these pasties from the Midwest that come down and get torched.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Broncos' biggest needs, we kind of already touched on it a little bit, Scott. For me, the obvious biggest need is running back. This team, if they turned over the entire room this offseason, I would have zero qualms with it. We talked about how deep this class is. I don't know if they have enough picks for it, but you probably want to walk away with 2. And what is the range they could take running back? Their first pick all the way to their 6th pick. If Ashton Genty's there at or 2, yeah. If Ashton Genty's there at 20, that's fine. I know there's some push for Amari and Hampton from North Carolina, maybe even Trayvon Henderson from Ohio State. I thought he was good value at 51. 20 seems a little rich with his injury history, and I have some tackle breaking questions with him, but he's a heck of a back, and he's the best pass protecting back in this class as well. So running back is the biggest need, and it's not just because you need one who can actually be somebody who can run between the tackles and be trusted, unlike Estime this season, seems like. But you also need that, everybody drink the buzzword, the Wildcat, which can pop, or not the Wild, what do they call it? Joker.
The Joker.
The Joker, which could be a running back position as well. So you're looking at running back across the board. And not only is it the biggest need because of where the roster's at, but it's also the one where it's going to be almost impossible to not add talent. And we talked about earlier, draft picks, you typically, 2 to 4 years really for that pan. Running back's different. Running back, you typically know out of the gate if a guy has it or not. It's one reason I'm not as we have Estime. He's going to block us from taking somebody. Did not see enough to think that way for running back, folks. So,
well, and when you're a healthy scratch in a playoff game, you'll be lucky to make the roster the next year.
It's more of that bubble conversation than it is blocking somebody. So, yes, I'm with you. Running back's the biggest one. And it could really raise the floor on this team. A lot of
maybe it wasn't a healthy scratch for all we know, Nick. But but you're not going into next year thinking Estime's all right. We're set at running back. We got Estime and McLaughlin.
Yep.
No,
absolutely.
Both of those guys, you might turn over the entire running back room over the course of the next 6 months.
And it's not every single person on a roster can be a superstar or a second contract guy. You need the solid filler types that make up a lot of rosters in the NFL that are on their rookie contracts. And Denver's right now there, McLaughlin, Estime, you can say that about, Luke Wattenberg as well. Some of these guys where it's we have a floor with those guys. We know they're not going to get absolutely killed. That guy doesn't completely not belong, but they're not talented enough that you're not considering upgrades in the draft. So, running back's number one. We got Coach Chris says, good morning. I might be a bit weird, but I love this time of year watching the development of our future trades, cuts. It's exciting. Enjoy the day. I mean, you're right. You're with the right people here, Chris. We love this time of year.
And Chris, thank you for the support coming in orange with that Broncos orange with that super chat. I used to try and explain because when I started in sports media, it was basically in the subscription business, and it was a lot around recruiting. So we're really dealing with the lunatic fringe of college football fans. Mm-hmm. And, I was following the first draft I really, really followed closely was 1988. That's how long I've been doing this, fantasy football. And now everybody does it. Now it's a 3-day event on primetime TV. But I always say, Chris, I said, what do? We cater to the lunatic fringe of football fans. And I can say that with love because I'm the head lunatic. Yeah. Nick and I will buy NFL Madden and not play a single game. We'll go right to the team building. We'll go right to the draft and free agency and then simulate. So, yes, our favorite time of the year, too, and we're glad that you're here with us.
Yeah, a lot of fun time of year. We'll see what happens. It's the possibility, right? If people get upset about mock drafts and all this stuff, it's the point of the mock drafts is to, discuss different outcomes and how it would look and why it would make sense. It's not exactly to predict who it's going to be. It's to say, what would this look like? What would it mean? Why would it go this way? And
and it's not you only got 1 out of 30 picks right. I'm yeah, but if what I want to know is
evaluation.
How close were you, to in your board, basically? If you had this guy going 6th overall and he goes 7th, that's a win. You got it right. If you had this guy ranked 90 and he goes 20th, well, you missed that one. That's a miss, not necessarily the order, because you could have one trade bump everybody down 1 spot, and I missed everybody by 1 spot, and I missed all 30 of 32 draft picks in my mock because of one thing that happened. Everything else was right on the money. That's what mock drafts are for, is how close what are our options going to be at this spot? What are the possibilities? And possibilities brings hope. Hope brings fun. Hope is what makes the world go around, Nick. That's what the offseason's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a lot of fun moving forward. So running back, I think some people will argue tight end on this team. Obviously, tight end needs to be upgraded as well. Some people argue tight end for number 2 on this as well. I think you can make that argument, but I'm going to pivot a little bit here, Scott. Running back is number 1 for me with a bullet. Number 2, I think, is linebacker for this roster spot. And you have Singleton coming off of a big injury. You have Barton gone. You have Stranad gone. And Drew Sanders, who's not done much of anything. I mean, you can make an argument right now that this team needs 2 linebackers. Honestly, maybe Singleton's contract is touched and he's gone. So at least with Denver at tight end, like you have Atkins, who like brings a floor and a role to the position. I think Troutman also is back as well. Again, brings a floor to the position. Do you love either of those guys? No. But again, tight end's definitely needed for this team. But I'm going to argue linebacker number 2. And also the other tidbit here for linebacker is that Mike Kliss on a radio hit said that if I'm going to mix up his words here. Sorry, Mike, for misquoting you. But my takeaway from what he said was that if there's any position that you can expect the Broncos to spend on in free agency this season, it's linebacker. They're going to add somebody in free. Now, are they going to pay the biggest linebacker on the market? I don't know. But Denver, I think, is going to allocate resources and try to really stabilize linebacker with a signing in the open market. Now, that doesn't mean they won't draft a guy high as well, because Singleton has just 1 year left. Drew Sanders, we have no idea what he is at this point, despite 2 years left of control. If you go into next season with Drew Sanders listed as a starter, you are in serious trouble. And maybe he ends up being a great player, but you can't. That's way too risky to go in with him in a position of meaningful contribution.
I don't think they trusted him. I don't think they trusted him to read and run a defense. That's why he got moved right away. Yeah. You know, that was again, what do I say? You're a really good athlete, but you're not a great football player. Well, dude, I'll put you at edge. Let me tell you, you've got one job. Go get the quarterback. That's it. And if you can do that, by God, we'll pay you $20 million. You know, that's it. I don't know that he's got the instincts at middle linebacker, and that's why he was moved almost immediately. It's not because we needed edge more than we needed inside linebacker. No, that's not the case. So when I think biggest needs, Nick, I think if I were to take, where would a plus player, just a little bit, even if I go average or just a little bit average, better than average, and I could take one, where would it improve my team the most? That's what I think of biggest needs.
If it's a plus player, I might argue tight end, just because of the quarterback amplifier there. And the issue with tight end for me, Scott, is that it's not just this team needs a tight end, it's that they need another pass weapon in general. So it's kind of a conglomerate of like a tight end can fill that role, a wide receiver can fill that role. Linebacker's not doing that as much. So I'm a little bit more siloed. In that
Either way, I agree with number 1. It's running back.
Yes.
If I can get a playmaker that's going to get the ball 20 times a game, that helps my team more than any other position. As opposed to a wide receiver who's going to get 8 targets and 6 catches for 100 yards. That's a great game. For a wide receiver. That's an amazing game. That's 1,700 yards. That's leading the league. I mean, if I could get that guy, I'd take him. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. More value.
But I think where this team needs the most help, where I can improve the team the most, is if I get a running back that is on the plus side of things. He's going to get 20 touches a game. He's going to touch the ball the second most times on the Denver Broncos. And for me, that ends up being your biggest need. Max, good to see you, Max. They call you Rio, but I would imagine being a little Canadian, that would be Rue, wouldn't it? Max Rue? Help us out with that one on the pronunciation so I can get on the guys for it. He says, morning, gents. Let's go Broncos. Appreciate you joining us this morning, Max. I think we can pronounce that part at least right. So that was my dad's name, my grandpa Max. I think that's a cool name. So appreciate you joining us today, Max. And thank you for the support.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Either way, though, Nick, tight end, running back. I mean, tight end and linebacker are both big needs, and they're not huge expenditures to get on the plus side of things. I mean, Alex Singleton was like the 7th highest paid inside linebacker in the NFL this year, Nick. He's top 10.
That's crazy.
That's he wasn't that expensive.
Yeah, no, linebacker and running back. No.
Yeah, if I've got to overpay for an inside linebacker to get a good inside linebacker, it might cost me an extra $1.5 million. It might take you from 7 to 8.5. Oh, okay. Yep. If I have to overpay for a wide receiver, it's going to cost me from $17 million. It's going to cost me to $25 million.
Yep. Moving forward, though, it's also tight end has got to be next. You just need a playmaker at that spot. Somebody ideally is a Y, but it could be a F tight end as well. And after that, Scott, I think the next biggest one is interior defensive line. You're losing DJ Jones Jackson was not very good this season. Zach Allen played 100 more snaps than everyone else. And DJ Jones, the free agent, he's probably gone. And then every single one of your top interior defensive linemen set to hit free agency after this season. I've said it on here 100 times. I'm very much a campfire mentality when it comes to the trenches. The way you don't build a fire and sustain it is to let the embers go cold and then toss a log on there. Guess what's going to happen? Plop, pile of dust. You got to keep it, or ash in the air. You got to keep it roaring. You got to keep it burning. So continuously feeding the fire, stoking the fire. So interior defensive line has got to be up there as well for Denver. There's just way too much turnover that's going to happen in that spot. And also you need some youth, ascending youth on that spot. Let's say they do bring back every single one of those players. Not going to happen. Let's say they do. Every single one, you want 3 third contract players on the very burdensome, joint-heavy interior defensive line position? No. You want some young ascending guys in there as well. So interior defensive line is next.
I think that works. We start going to, I mean, you haven't mentioned wide receiver. Yeah, out of all this,
wide receiver's next. Yeah.
Okay, I was like, out of all this, I mean, I've got this. Do I want to take care of one side of the ball first and then scheme? I mean, I can make an argument, you know, again, going back to the plus player thing, that a number one wide receiver, or, you know, at least a Cortland Sutton equivalent would be the second biggest need on this team.
Yeah. I mean, big picture, a true number one wide receiver is probably the move. It's just probably not happening at 20 and not in this free agency market, if that makes sense. Like, if I could add,
would you guys trade your number one for Garrett Wilson from the Jets in a heartbeat? It's going to cost you more than that.
Yeah.
It'll probably, at the very least, cost you the equivalent of 2 number ones coming in at 20. So would I do that? Yes, I would. The Jets won't. They'll get a better offer than that for a 23, 24-year-old, 3,500-yard wide receiver in 3 years. So Garrett Wilson's really good, and he's young, and he still has cost control for a couple more years. Would I do it for a number one? Absolutely, I would. They won't. He's more expensive than that.
Yeah, I agree. So you mentioned wide receiver, of course, out there. Just the last ones here, rolling through. We mentioned it kind of early. Teams need to draft with a 2 years perspective on the roster. So areas that are going to be coming of need here the next 2 seasons. Center is one you're probably looking at, of course. Dark horse is backup quarterback. You're probably going with a cost free agent market there. And then we didn't mention it yet, Scott, but safety, obviously, as well as a spot that, I mean, we've seen 2 big mocksters, Bucky Brooks and Daniel Jeremiah, mock a safety to the Broncos at 20. So safety is another spot that's up there. It's safe. PJ Locke is Luke Wattenberg to me, right? Like, you have, like, I hate to degrade the guy. They're fine. You know, like they're Jags. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Like, they can hold down the spot, but like, you are absolutely looking to upgrade the position if the opportunity
presents itself. I want them 3-4. I don't want them 60 snaps a game on defense.
Exactly. So we'll see what happens with those guys. But those are the spots that stand out for me. The ones, it's easier to say which spots are not, you don't need. I think offensive tackle and guard specifically, you're pretty stable there 2 seasons, which is great. Quarterback, you're stable there 3 seasons. And edge rusher and cornerback, I think that's a 1-year stable spot. Now, if you have a guy you absolutely love, those positions are so valuable and rotate, and, you know, injuries change things quickly, that I would not be afraid to use a premium resource on cornerback or edge any season at any point, depending on the talent available to you. But I think those are more of a, you're looking for depth at cornerback, but I think it's more of a kick the can. We're going to have a first round conversation again next season about those spots, along with offensive tackle. Leadhead comes in. Who's the next Benito on this team? What current Bronco do you think will step up this coming season? I think the obvious answer here is Jonah Ellis, as far as the guy who was one of the youngest players in football this season, coming off an injury, but it saw some flashes there. He was a all-pro rookie team as well, listed on defensive line instead of edge or linebacker, which is weird. But I think Ellis is the obvious one. Tillman stands out for me as well. And maybe somebody like a Vele, not a young player, but an experienced player at the NFL level. Maybe he's somebody who can, it sounds like he's going to have an opportunity. But Vele is another one who stands out.
That's a great question. How about, I mean, we've seen, you got Cooper Jean in my head now. Riley Moss.
Yeah, Riley Moss, second year. Yep.
You know, Riley Moss has shown some flashes, and then, you know, maybe he ends up being the next guy that ends up going to a Pro Bowl type level. That's a great question. Who's already there that is ready to take that next step?
Yeah.
I don't know that it's going to be estimated. I go back, Bo Nix. Maybe the answer is Bo Nix, where he goes from being, a good rookie to a legitimate, top 5 AFC Pro Bowl quarterback.
For
Maybe
me,
that's the answer is Bo.
For me, for Moss, I think the tape before the injury was already so good, personally, that it's not so much like taking the next step. It's do it again. It's more of
and be more consistent and having more. How about Marvin Mims? Marvin Mims showed some big flashes at the end of as the season wore on. Can he consistently do that over the course of 17 games? And we saw flashes from Nick Bonito. We saw the talent there. Now he goes out there and gets a sack a game, and he's knocking on the door all pro.
Yeah, I'm looking at guys who are young, quote unquote young, inexperienced, but have a pathway towards meaningful snaps.
Marvin Mims.
Mims is one for sure. I mean, just the stability with him. But the two, again, just as far as Bonito rookie season, the second year Bonito, I think Ellis stands out and Vele stands out because there's obviously you need 4 edge rushers. People are like, oh, your first 2 are good. Okay. You're going to play 4 and you want every single guy out there to be a matchup problem. I just don't accept filler on the defensive line, nor should you.
And you won't have to this year. You won't have to be shopping in the 1.5 million vet minimum backups this year. You can go to 3 to 4 million of quality professionals, former starters who, are good players that'll be the difference this year in the team and with having that salary cap money back.
Yep. I don't think it's a good free agency crop, but I think a lot of free agencies, depth. I think a lot of it's going to be earmarked for Zach Allen. Watch for that Zach Allen contract. But
that'll knock down the overall number this year.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, a new contract will lower his cap hit, not raise it.
Yeah, Denver also doesn't have a lot on the books in the future as well. It's like people look at salary cap and they look at this season, but really these contracts aren't really set up that way. It's more like what do you have allocated the next 3 to 4 years, right? It's that's how we should be looking at Nick keeps looking at the big picture here, but that's how money is allocated on these things. Tillman also deserves a shout. I like that one. Thank you, Leded. We also got Shadif coming in here if it'll let me click it. D-line, running back, safety. I think we signed an inside linebacker and tight end free agency and draft. Every single one of those needs, and you could argue they need 2 linebackers, 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, free agent 1 and draft 1 or 2. I mean, it depends on who's available. And free agency is hard, Scott, because the top 20 guys are going to be resigned. There's going to be 50 new guys that are cut. I just don't know actually who the market is yet.
If I could have my druthers, I'd want to go free agent at linebacker and safety or tight end. But I want instant experience in those positions, especially down the spine of your defense, because that'll be a proven commodity that I feel like I can count on a little better, and it'll be cheap. It'll be cheap compared to if I were to get a defensive lineman, quality defensive linemen on the open market are friggin' expensive. You want to draft premium positions and backfill the non-premium positions with day 2, day 3 picks and free agency. It's not as expensive to go out and get a veteran. And the impact you could have with a good veteran linebacker, well, we already discussed that earlier.
Mm-hmm. And obviously this team was not happy with linebacker. They fired their coach. You had Barton was about to be benched before the Saints game, reportedly by multiple outlets, and Denver was looking all season before the season kicked off to add to the linebacker room. They were not happy with that room, and that was before Singleton went down. So definitely looking for that. We're going to run this mock here real quick, just 4 rounds. We're going to be lickety split on it, not spend too much time. So here we are with the Broncos. You got Mykel Williams an option, Walter Nolan an option, Kenneth Grant an option, Omarion Hampton an option, Gray Zabel right there as well, Scott. There's Colston Loveland. That's probably the list of guys who stand out for me. I mean, the guy who's going to come off the board highest here out of this group is probably Mykel Williams, but I don't think we can do an edge. So I'm between Grant, Nolan, Hampton, and Loveland, with a shout out to Hampton.
There's NFL.com and ESPN. I only look at 3 places for mock drafts because there's so many of them out there. But ESPN and NFL.com both have mock drafts out today. Both have them. About the only 2 picks they agree on are Loveland at 20 to the Denver Broncos.
You want to go that way? We did a mock before, and it was Loveland. I'm fine going that way. I think he's a good player. I have some reservations about the profile a little bit. But we could go Loveland here and just, stabilize that position. He's a professional route runner from the tight end spot.
Yeah, and there's a weapon. There's a go-to guy that your security blanket, and we've seen. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the tight end. Again, we all have our biases. I grew up with the I formation, pro formation, San Francisco 49ers dynasties, good tight end, good fullback.
Yep.
And then it moved into the Dallas Cowboys in the 90s, good tight end, good fullback.
Yep.
So I loved, and then, it went away for a long time as you went to, run and shoot, greatest show on turf. And then the Patriots bring it back, make the tight end cool again. I love the tight end position again, talked about turning a tight end loose in the secondary. It's game changing. When you start dragging 3 or 4 defenders with you 5 yards down the field, turn an 8-yard gain into a 13-yard gain, the whole stadium erupts.
Yeah. Denver Luke says tight end Terrence Ferguson, day 3 or day 2. Yeah, he's somebody, not an incredible athlete, but probably go there round 4. And we're keeping an eye on him. We took a tight end already. Doesn't mean we can't take one again later. But do like him a lot. He's one of the top 7, 8 tight ends in this class. There's a lot of good tight ends. Denver, just because they don't take one at 20, doesn't mean they're not going to get one. It probably does mean you're not going to get day 1 impact as much, but that's not really the point of your draft picks, right? It's not about what they do their rookie season. It's about getting especially your first picks, getting a long-term option here. Broncos on the clock again. We talked about it. Need running back, wide receiver, linebacker, defensive line.
Jihad Campbell right there. I took him in the second when I saw him.
Yeah, the one that I mean, shout out to Trevor Sycamore, does good work over at PFF. Jalen Walker being this far down, I think is silly. He's going to test like a freak, and apparently his football character's off the charts as well. So he's at a pick at option at 20 for Denver, quite frankly. Elakeo Manor. Okay, so I know that Beck is coming off the Senior Bowl with all the hype in the world. From what I'm hearing, a lot of the reason Elakeo Manor pulled out of the Senior Bowl is because he got word from his agent that you don't really need to be here. You're already thought of very high. And he's somebody that all of a sudden after the Senior Bowl, it's like, oh, getting mocked pick 32, 31.
We'll go click on wide receivers, and the first 6 of them probably won't have been at the Senior Bowl.
Yes. Well, keep an eye on Ellick because he's kind of forgotten right now because he was not there participating. But again, these mock drafts coming out after the Senior Bowl, people who talk to agents and this stuff, I think Ellick's stock is pretty high. I think he's going to be somebody who goes pick 30, 40 right now. Shadif comes in and said, didn't we draft Fan at 25 years ago? Give me Nolan or Amanawari. I think Sycama's lower on Amanawari as well. He's an option there, but
it was at 20. Good.
It was at 20.
He was number 20 in 2019. So this will be the 6th draft since that happened.
Yep. I always fear taking a tight end in the first round because of historical precedent, but in this round we did it. We're talking about possibilities here. What does it look like for Denver? So we took one there. On this one, Scott, the way the board fell, I probably would. Let's pretend Jalen Walker's not here. I probably would stand for Jihad Campbell because of the size, the athleticism. Denver has a need at linebacker, both immediately and long term. But I do want to give a shout out to Elakeo Manor. Omar Norman Lott as well is interesting. I prefer him 3rd round. Stands out for me. Talked about Ivy, and then there's your guy Darius Alexander. So I'd be happy with any of those guys here.
Darius Alexander's a monster. I mean, he is a 6'5", 300-pound defensive end who is just gifted. Love the guy.
Should we go? Let's go Darius Alexander on this one. I think Jihad Campbell is probably the best value here, but it's a mock for fun for a reason. So we got our versatile defensive lineman there. We're going to be on the pick here for the Broncos now.
Shitty, thanks for the super again, coming in back to back on that. You got the brace today, my friend. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. We've taken Jihad before, so we'll go Darius there. Just give him a shout out on that Senior Bowl bump. Now we're on the clock here with the Broncos. Tyler Booker, who was mocked top 10 by Daniel Jeremiah, recently fell to the 3rd round. Maxwell Hairston, Josiah Stewart, he's a Nick Benito clone. Azare Thomas is very interesting. We already took a tight end, but there's Mason Taylor. And
that's why you might not want to take a tight end at 20. There's value to be had later on down the board.
Yeah.
In a position that's a little scary taking in the 1st round.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I am not loving a lot of our options here for the Broncos as it stands.
And I'm getting motion sickness watching you bounce that thing up and down like a yo-yo.
Classic Nick. Yeah, I really don't love the the value here from a lot of these guys on the board. I was hoping for, sorry to give you motion sickness there, Scott, a running back option. They flew off the board, unfortunately. So, man, sometimes I just say just take talent, right? And for me, the best guy looking at the board, we already took a tight end. I would have been fine with Mason Taylor.
Boy, there's a defensive lineman. If you hadn't already gone that way, there's your run stuffer right there. Is the man mountain of Deion Walker.
I have a hard time with Walker, Scott, because
He's
he is
okay.
so skinny in his base and he can't play low. So I'm worried. Like, is he a run stopping base package 4i?
Someone said he's a basketball player in my comments on my YouTube channel when I posted him. He's a basketball player that just never stopped eating.
Yeah.
But he's I mean, again, he's taking up space.
Yeah.
But Walker, so he'd be down. He was 6'7" and a quarter, 340 pounds, with a 7 foot and 1/2 inch wingspan. I mean, someone should have told him he's not quite as bad as Yaya Black. He moves. He's got a lot more flexibility than that. But someone should have told him to be an offensive tackle.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Cesare Thomas here. Best player on the board. I think he's going to potentially be a first rounder. And it's just he's too valuable here to pass. I know it's not a need necessarily, but guess what? Moss could play safety or slot. McMillan could play safety. I think Thomas is a chance to end up being the best man corner in this class. And to pair him with Patrick Surtain, I think gives you a really unique weapon. So I don't love it, but here we are. And the last pick here, Scott, we're still looking at running back. We're still looking at other things here for the Broncos. Man, we did not end up taking a running back. I don't love that. Looking at the board here for the Broncos, the guy who stands out for me is Jalen Noel. We haven't added a wide receiver yet, and he was awesome from Iowa State. Oh, man, I'm going too fast. I thought I was going slow.
Comments are awesome.
Clicking.
What about this one? How about this one? How about the I'm like, you settle on the guy. I'm gonna look over here and look outside at the birds until you settle on one place, and then I'll look at the screen.
Yeah, for me, I just scroll fast up.
Yeah, but then you bounce back up. What about this guy? How about that guy?
I think the one who stands out here for me is Jalen Noel. Iowa State. He stood out at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah,
slot.
He was a Senior Bowl guy. They had a
good weapon.
Like you said, they had a couple guys there. Right? They didn't have the.
Yep.
That was Isaac. Isaac was the Arkansas guy. He was somebody I'm very interested in seeing him test because he was a unit.
T-Slaw. Isaac T-Slaw.
Yeah. I couldn't pronounce his last name. He was built like Besh, just strong. But he was bigger. He was a lot bigger than I thought. He was 6'3", 215. So I'm interested to watch him test.
He broke my heart because he was about to go to Iowa and he picked Arkansas in the transfer portal. But, he's Arkansas issues on offense. Found somebody this season. Not good running backs. This is Denver I think Denver, if the running backs start to go, Denver might trade up. And there's still guys I like
running backs
later on.
See who's there and not just where they have them ranked.
Okay, I'm scrolling up.
Change it to running backs and see who's there. Because what are we in the 4th round?
Yep. Damian Martinez. I think this is about where he could go, but he reminds me a lot of Audric Estime. There's Hunter. I think it's a little early still for Hunter. Mullins is
moved up though. 139 is higher for him. There's ATN. I'd be happy with Hunter or ATN in the 3rd or in the 4th. I think that'd be okay.
Manungai, Yarns, Rocket Sanders. I don't know. I think the value here is Noel. All the same, is the guy I would probably pound the table for. I think he's going to go somewhere in the top 60. And you get him here at 120 or whatever. I think that's the best value. So,
Michael says Nick and Scott have a question. All right, shoot.
From Booker, I don't see Kenneth Booker's there. See, they wanted us to take a look at
Kenny has a question. Kenny, Miami Hurricanes fan here. I love Arroyo for the Broncos Day 2 red zone target hog. Best available. I'm not sure what it is, but appreciate the stars. Michael, Kenny? Of course.
Yeah, Kenny. I love Arroyo too. If he falls there to the Broncos round 2 and they haven't already taken a tight end, he's definitely on the board. He's also somebody that I think Denver could trade up for to go get in the end. So they're not going to love our picks here. C+. They didn't love Loveland or Alexander. We'll see what happens there. I would be happy with this overall, Scott.
This is one of those, Nick, where I like to. I'm wanting to show you all this. So hold on one second. I've been wanting to show you all this for a while. On what could this draft? This was from March 24th. Okay, this was March 24th. Let me zoom in some. On what how did Scott and Nick do? So I'm going to remove yours. I'm going to show my screen here real quick. Present, share screen, entire screen. As far as their board goes and their grades go, well, we did it on theirs. How would this have looked for a draft, Nick? If we were able to do this with trading down and getting Jared Verse at 22. Round 2, we take Bo Nix at 46. We get Ladd McConkey at 50. And then Blake Fisher, 76. Theo Johnson, who played a lot. Malik Mustafa, who played a lot. Cornelius Johnson, wide receiver at 47. Gabe Hall in the 6th. And then cornerback.
We got Still as well. What a draft from us.
This was our draft the day of, I think, of the draft. Doing pro football focuses. And what do we get on this for a grade? B-. Overall grade of an A. Where we get, there's a helicopter hovering over my house, so hopefully y'all can't hear that. Yep. But as far as their grades go, where do we get them versus where do they have them ranked? I like our boards better.
Yeah, that's one where the only thing I'd change in hindsight is put Rosengarten there instead of Fisher.
That was who I was thinking. It was Roger Rosengarten, and he was probably gone already. I was like, who is the guy? I was like, the guys I loved coming out. I mentioned Spencer Brown. I mentioned Abraham Lucas. Guys I really liked. It was Roger that I really liked, and I think he ended up going really high. He
went second round to the Ravens. He was good enough to be a first-round pick. So that's where we're at. We're at an hour, guys. Need to get on out of here. But I'm sorry, Bonnie. That was not a good mock to your preference. But that's cornerback we took. I think he's going to end up being a first-rounder. That wide receiver we took round 4. I think he's going to be probably top of the 3rd round. So it's cornerback, wide receiver, defensive line, edge, offensive line. Just keep stacking. Every single one of those positions is going to be a need a year from now, 2 years from now with how much churn there is. So just get good players. And that's what we did there. Obviously not immediate needs. We need a running back. That was the one that really stinks there. But option there. Maybe you package all of your 6 rounders together, Scott, and move up into the 4th round and get a guy you want. I don't know, but that's how it played out in this one. And keep an eye on Thomas because all of a sudden he's getting first-round mock pretty consistently. So getting him in the 3rd round, end of the 3rd round, steal. Just had too much value.
Jason, come on, dude. Free agency comes before the draft. Maybe you sign 2 free agent running backs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll
see.
Sorry, maybe those 4th, maybe those 5th, 6th, maybe 5th, 6th, and 7th. Those running backs end up being pretty good too. So again, I saw a lot of running backs that I liked. He just didn't want to take them at 4.
Yep. Like I talked about earlier, if Genty doesn't get to 20, I feel like a lot of the guys I like are almost always taken before the Broncos pick again at 51. So we'll see what happens. We could have gone with Henderson there, but I don't know, man. Alexander's just so fun. I wanted to give him a shout out there for the Broncos in the 2nd round. But appreciate you guys, everybody coming in. Again, it's a mock. It's an exercise to see what it looks like. What happens when you don't take a running back? There we are. Kilgore coming in a few times. The lead head, of course, Quentin Caldwell, Coach Chris, Max up there in Canada, Denver Luke, Shadif a few times. Appreciate all you guys coming and supporting us today. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott's at Scott Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, we got Michael says, great show today. Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Bo Broncos. Go Michael. Really do appreciate you coming in, helping us out here. Also, make sure you guys are following us at Mile High Huddle. We're over at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says there underneath, please subscribe, like, and share. We got to fly. Appreciate it, everyone. There'll be plenty more mock drafts on Mondays between now and the April getting here. And we're going to find out a lot of different things. Free agency will change it. More information from the Super Bowl, the Combine, et cetera, et cetera. It's just fun to talk about the hypotheticals and what it looks like and all the team building philosophy in the end. So a lot of different ways it can go. Got to maximize.
We got money and draft picks this year.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. At some point we'll trade down too. But not today. Appreciate everyone. Have a good one. Scott, any final words, thoughts?
See you Wednesday. I guess I got to talk longer since Nick was taking that big chug of Lion coffee. So thanks for being here, everybody. Appreciate the support, y'all. We'll see you Wednesday.
Yep. Peace.